Baseball Show is presented by BetMGM on Monday, August 7th. Use promo code JustBaseball and start betting with the king of sportsbooks. Programming note, no Walker Buehler. He was a little bit under the weather on Sunday night, so we're going to talk to him again as an additional bonus episode, the JBXWB. You guys seem to like that, so we'll do it for the second week in a row. So no Walker today. Instead, we're going to talk about the streakiness of each wild card race. It feels like teams are starting to separate themselves, and you've got teams that are on 4-game win streaks, 5-game win streaks. You've got teams that are on 5- and 6-game losing streaks. So is this where we start to see the true wild card frontrunners, take command of those spots, and we start to lose some of that murkiness? And then we got to talk about Tim Anderson and Jose Ramirez. Obviously, there might be some more layers to it, but one grown man got his shit rocked by another grown man, and it was kind of funny on Saturday night. Aram, world traveler, how was the Reds game on Saturday?
Dude, Saturday Reds game. It was like, I'm glad we're talking about the wild card after I just took in a Reds game, because there's several teams you talked about as the cream's kind of rising to the top here, where some teams look like they're dead in the water. And obviously there's a lot of season left and they'll shake out of it. But just in terms of in a vacuum right now, there's a couple teams out there that look like they are in big trouble. And you could just feel it at the Reds game. So I'll start with the game was fun. Of course, met our guy Clay Snowden, who's been doing stuff with us for a long time. I've been friends with him now for a long time, but never met him in person. Florida, Kentucky, New York, Kentucky, not that close. So that was fun. Got to check off Great American Ballpark along with my girlfriend, Ellie. And that brings me to 25 stadiums now.
So what's left?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if people know this, the whole backstory, but real quick, not to take us too far off. I promise we'll talk about all the things we talked about. But my dad and I, when I was born, like 6 years into it, literally, I'm 6 years old, and my dad's the day you were born, I always came up with the idea, I want to go to all 30 baseball stadiums with you. I was like, all right, cool. So once I was old enough to remember it, we started doing it. So probably right around age 9, and started going from there. And we got to we were kind of slow with it because I had summer ball. So we got to 19, and he unfortunately suddenly passed away my freshman year of college. So my buddies and I kind of said, let's set out and finish it. So I've been finishing it through the years, some through covering baseball, some with friends, some just trying to fit it in on a trip. Yeah. And this was one step closer. So I got a handful more. I got Pittsburgh, Minnesota, Kansas City, Dallas, I guess Arlington. Mm-hmm. And I think that's it. I don't think I have another one. Who am I forgetting? I'm forgetting one, or that's it. But either way, Cleveland. That's it. So I'm excited to finish that. It'll be pretty cool. It's something that keeps me connected to my dad. And, Cincinnati was probably middle of the pack. Cool stadium, middle of the pack so far.
They do a good job with the upkeep of it. It's a very clean ballpark. It's a nice ballpark, and it feels very manageable.
Yeah.
I don't know. And the ballpark area is really nice. And they've got a good ballpark neighborhood, I think. And I love that concept. I love that you're doing it. You've got the Midwest to check off. You're trying to avoid doing it with me, and that's fine. I get it. You make sure that I get out of Indiana before you go.
I was going to say,
Cincinnati.
I'm waiting for you to take the big league job on a coast, and then I'm going to hit the Midwest and knock out the rest of those stadiums there.
Yeah. Perfect. So fingers crossed, if I do get one of those jobs in the Midwest, just don't come for 10 years.
No, just leave those.
Yeah,
I'll leave those.
Just leave it. No, man, but that's just so freaking cool. And I'm glad that you're doing that. And I'm glad you got to link with Clay, because Clay is the man, and he does great work for us on the written side. In Cleveland, one of those ballparks that you haven't been to, you could have gotten a look at Paul Diaz 2.0 a little bit earlier than that. And J-Ram rocked Tim Anderson. That whole sequence was fascinating, man. And we're going to get into, the more human side of this in a moment, but just from the survey look, it was Tim Anderson, obviously baiting with the Gabriel Arias stuff a little bit earlier in the game and apparently previous games. And I'm sure hey, division rival, you've got some of that, just grudge held between the best player on the Guardians and for a while, the best player on the Chicago White Sox. And they squared up, legit squared up. Tim Anderson threw the glove and was okay, let's go, hands up. And it took 2 swings, and J-Ram knocked TA, and TA was dizzy walking off the field. I mean, that was like the best baseball, and I say best, that was the biggest baseball fight since Bautista and Rougned Odor.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the first thing I thought of when I saw it. I'm not gonna lie, man. Like, of course, when he got like blows going, like on a field, kids are watching all that stuff. Like, of course, I don't think about that in the moment. Of course, you think about it after. In the moment, I was in my living room, like, it takes a lot to get me like that. But I was like, oh my gosh, like I got jumped out of the couch and I was like jogging in place. Like, no way that just happened.
Yeah.
And then you like process it all, and there's like so many layers to it. But the first place my mind went was, how did we get here? Like you kind of said, and you could see the moment in that snippet of just how that could be a little bit annoying to J Ram, but it just seemed like such a big leap to get from that moment specifically to, you're squaring up like in your stance, trying to throw blows. That was obviously the culmination of, like, I feel like a lot of things before. You talked about something with Arias. I bet you it's things that have gone back different series, different years, kind of death by a million paper cuts type of thing, because J-Ram is such a level-headed dude. And it wasn't that moment in isolation, I feel like, that got J-Ram going. There was conversations they've probably had in the clubhouse of, yeah, TA's doing it to us again or whatever. A rivalry where the blood kind of just boils over. Yeah. And I think that's kind of what happened. I total speculation, but then you hear J-Ram's comments that are like,
dude,
he's been disrespecting the game for a while. J-Ram's not one of those hardo, like, do the right thing, like play the game the right way kind of guy.
No Bumgarner or Josh Donaldson.
No, to me, that comes off a little differently. That's like, that guy's been disrespecting us for a minute, and I'm not here for it anymore.
Yeah, and the other thing that I found really fascinating about the whole situation was neither of those guys is Rougned Odor. Like, this is the face of the franchise on this side against the face of the franchise on this side. So this was team leader against obviously a pretty fractured clubhouse, but I guess you would view him as the leader of the White Sox in Tim Anderson. So I found that really interesting, and I thought that J-Ram, there's no such thing as a good spot for a fight like that, but I thought J-Ram picked a spot and nailed it with that.
Yeah.
I mean, his comments post-game, literally nailed it, but metaphorically too. And I think J-Ram's comments post-game that you just alluded to were fascinating, because he wasn't like, my head got a little too big, anything like that. It was, I stand by what I did. Like, I deserve the right to rock the shit out of him.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't, I got pissed off in the moment, blah, blah, blah. It was like, no, this needed to be done kind of thing. And
happy I did it. And how about Tito, right? Yeah. When they asked, what'd you think of J-Ram's left hook? And he corrected and said right hook.
Right hook.
Like, Tito wasn't
he didn't say that can't happen. He didn't say that can't happen. He said it's not funny. Said it was like, an unfortunate thing, but there wasn't really a statement from Tito that was like, that is an inexcusable thing. You don't want, like, that cannot happen. That wasn't really what was said. So to me, it was like this was almost like something that they felt like had to happen, which on the flip side of it too, it's tough to see Tim Anderson like this. And like, we'll get into the tweets and stuff too, because I think that showed a guy that's, definitely not in the best spot ever right now. Anytime you're firing off 13 even if you're in an okay state mentally, if you're firing off 13 straight tweets, like, something's going on. You're dealing with something. But beyond that, it's like, I think TA, we always were saying there's so much more to his struggles. This guy's way too talented to be struggling the way he is on the field. It's not like he's 34, he's 30, and a guy that really just relied on his ability to hit. He's a great athlete, but it's not like he's some freak like Giancarlo Stanton that, like, as he gets over 30, you could slow down. I
wouldn't call him a freak athlete anymore, Stanton.
No. But no, not anymore. You saw him jogging around third. But I think something's really up with TA, and I think he, in his attitude and the way he was playing, I think he was almost trying to piss them off. Like, I think he's just a miserable guy on the field right now. Like, that's kind of how I took it. Is like, this guy doesn't want to be out there really right now, and he's just pissed off and unhappy. Like, he's just not having it.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say that embodies the White Sox season, because while it has been a frustrating season, it hasn't been like out-of-body experience, pissed off type season. There's no baseball season that pushes you to that point where you have to be miserable on a day-to-day basis. But obviously there's something, bigger going on with him, right? When he goes on that Twitter rampage and, if you don't know about the off the field stuff, go ahead and Google. We're not going to talk about that here. Like, I feel like this guy is kind of living a tough day to day right now,
Yeah,
especially
no.
being on a bad team.
There's been a lot of opinions hurled his way about him and his life
And the way he
on the
exists,
field.
not just the way he plays, but like
Yeah.
also there have been opinions thrown at him about the way he exists off the field
Yeah.
too. And that has to be exhausting to
Yeah.
constantly.
I mean, you look at the Jackie situation with Donaldson, like, I can guarantee you that was not a settling experience. It wasn't just a one-day thing and he's over it. Like, there's follow-up questions. There's people talking about it. There's what did Tim Anderson do to deserve that? Like, that's going to be a perspective of it, even though it's unfair. Like, there's just more conversation around you. And I feel like Tim Anderson has not been able to escape the conversation around him now for years, not year, like years, dating back to that moment, dating back to the off the field, like, whether it's true or not, or whatever it is, like, still being discussed, still your life being, a focal point for other people. And then the struggles on the field, all of the chaos just with the White Sox in general. And now all the things that are happening now, like, this guy's got to be just tired, man. And it's tough to see. That's the human side where it's like, yeah, like, that was a hilarious fight. And like, two grown men fighting on a baseball field is just objectively funny. They're playing a kid's game and fighting.
Right.
But then you think about it after and you're like, this guy's going through it. If he's like wanted to square up on the field right now, and you start to backtrack and you're like, this guy's been through a lot of things, some self-inflicted, some not, but he's been through a lot over the last year plus 2 years.
Yeah. And I mean, think about, like, I'm sure you've talked to people that hate Tim, like they use the word hate in regards to Tim Anderson. He's a polarizing player. And, I'm to the point where, like, I hear it enough from the old guard of baseball fan. I hear it enough from, even like younger people that really enjoy the game of baseball that, say like, oh, I hate Tim Anderson. I think that guy's a jackass. That has to be so tiring. If you're Tim Anderson, it's tiring for me to hear it. And I'm like, well, I like the guy.
And
so
the counter argument would be, we'll be less flashy, but being flashy is also why that other large facet of people absolutely adore him, and why he has, large brand deals and things like that relative to a lot of other players of his ability. Yeah. So there's a lot to unpack there, but I'm just interested to see how it all goes. We're talking about a club option for what, $14 million next year. Yeah. You imagine that the White Sox pretty much have to pick it up no matter how bad things go. I just find it interesting that, like, this guy on the other side of the second half starts really playing well. You see this best stretch he's had in a long time. I know it was only 10 games, but it was a nice stretch. And then, these frustrations boil over. I really do think it's 80 to 90% mental for him right now in terms of the baseball struggles. I don't think it's that much performance based. If there's anyone that would have benefited by the new rules, it's him. It's not a year that you would expect him having the worst year of his career by a good margin.
Yeah. So this was, it's a loaded conversation about Tim Anderson. It's a loaded conversation about Jose Ramirez, about the situation in general. The two things that are just objectively funny are Tom Hamilton's radio call, the Guardians radio announcer. They're fighting. And then down goes Anderson. It was very funny. And then Eloy Jimenez limping away from the fight was objectively funny.
Dude, you can't make that up. You cannot make that up. You can't make up that man limping away from the fight. Like, somehow found a way to get hurt in that situation. It's just, it never fails.
It's not even glass. Like, I think glass is stronger than this guy. Is it toothpicks and rubber bands? What's going on?
Speaking of, dude, Jazz Chisholm, like, he comes back, he hits like 2 home runs in 3 games, gets like hurt in both of them. And now he's dealing with, they said a hamstring cramp, but it's like, that dude too. Yeah, I think he's in Eloy territory.
How about Rodon? Where's Rodon in this conversation? Hamstring type.
Yeah, pitchers will give the benefit of the doubt. Pitchers will just be like, it's different. When it's like a position player that it's like leg, hip, shoulder, head, knee, like it's every single body part. Like, some guys are just, it's anatomy. Other guys, I'm like, are they doing everything they need to do to like actually maintain their body and try to preserve their health? We talked to Walker, like, he does everything in his power to stay healthy, and circumstances have been unfortunate for him. But if he didn't, he probably isn't even throwing a baseball anymore right now. Like, he doesn't even have a chance. So, like, most of these guys, even the ones that are hurt a lot, do a ton to not be hurt as much as they are.
By the way, did you see Walker throwing a pen in San Diego with John Rahm standing in, the world number one in golf?
Yeah. Yeah, that was sick. We got to ask
What
him
the
about that.
hell? Yeah, we got to talk about that. So,
What a
I
life.
mean, just hilarious. But like that guy has dealt with the same injury twice, and we know how hard he works. We know how smart that guy is, and how much he wants to learn about his body in terms of, preventative, but also build up again. And I mean, like Walker Bueller and Eloy Jimenez could not be more different in that regard. Where
No.
like
So that's why
Eloy, it's
there's a level that's just out of your control.
yeah, man. Like Walker, this situation is beyond his control. And like, surgically repaired UCL lasted what, 7 years, 8 years? Like Eloy, it's hamstring, calf, pec, shoulder. Like you can play
You
operations
just
with
gotta
Eloy
wonder.
Jimenez.
You gotta wonder, like, is there things that you can do that are preventative when it's all of those different body parts? And I'll leave that up to interpretation of the listener. I think that's an open conversation you can have.
For sure. All right, we're gonna jump into wild card. We're gonna start with the sliders, and then we're gonna finish with the gainers. But first, baseball card market is heating up during the second half of the season, and so is the card market. The only place to search for cards is alt.xyz, alt.xyz. Alt is the only platform on the interweb that allows you to search all the major marketplaces and eBay at once. Just download the free Alt app, type a player or their card into the search bar, and Alt is going to return every graded card available for sale. Even better, you save your search. You can get notified every time that card is available. You'll never use another app for researching and buying baseball cards ever again. Just Baseball strives to be one-stop shopping for baseball coverage. Alt is your one-stop shopping for card buying and selling. You picked up an interesting card at the National, and you now have a community tracking a certain pitching prospect because you have a rare card.
Yeah, I told that story. When did I'm trying to remember. Was that on the call up or on
I think
this
it was on
show?
the
I don't
call.
remember now.
I think it was on the call.
Yeah, so super fun. But yeah, I met some listeners of Just Baseball podcast. We decided to split a box together, rip something. We pulled a Noah Schultz out of 5. So that guy's good. Because at first you see a picture, you're like, oh no, and then on it you could pull the alt app out, literally go see what similar cards have sold for. Unfortunately, there were no comps for a card there's only 5 of.
Yeah.
But pitchers are usually worth less. So unless they're really good, they can be worth more. And this one was worth more. You could check out just comparisons of his regular cards, other numbers on alts. It's just a perfect example of that. And we realized, hey, we might have something good here. So we're holding it, and we will decide as a team here when we're gonna move the Noah Schultz card. But for now, 4 shutty the other day, I think 9 Ks. He's 6'9" lefty with the White Sox. We're going to hold for a little bit. We're going to see how it goes. We're going to ride this out. And he's turning into a pretty special arm. Already top 100 arm, top 100 prospect.
Yeah, I don't blame you, man. He's the next Chris Sale. I stand by that.
I hope.
All right, let's do sliders. Let's start with the NL. The Reds, the Marlins, the Diamondbacks, and the Mets are the 4 teams that I want to highlight here. We're going to start with the Mets because I think this is a very quick conversation. Mets have dropped 6 in a row. They are done. 7.5 out of the wild card spot. They sold. They're done.
Yeah, no, it's very simple. They did well. We talked about it in terms of what they added. Ryan Finkelstein had a great tweet. He said, I think SNY should just air the Binghamton games from now on, and that they'll probably do better. And I don't think they're wrong. They've had some good performances already from Drew Gilbert, Ryan Clifford, Mauricio, hopefully starting to get rolling again. Like they've got good performances from the new guys.
I see Clifford hit an 110-mile-an-hour homer in his first game
Yep.
in the Mets. Or
first game in the Mets system, 110.
Come on now. All right. Cincinnati has lost 6 in a row. They're 59 and 55. They're currently tied with the Cubs right now. The Cubs, I guess, have a tiebreaker or it's run differential, and the Cubs are on the inside. We're going to talk about the Cubs, but the Cincinnati Reds have relinquished that spot.
Yep.
They ran out of magic, man. Like, I just think this is the roster and the youth catching up to them, and it was so much fun while it lasted, and I'm really excited to see Lyon Richardson throw for them consistently if he does get that opportunity because he throws so freaking hard. But, dude, like, this isn't the Reds' year, and I think, now it doesn't even look like they're going to sneak into a bad National League wildcard race.
Yeah, I think what we kind of, this will be the theme of the podcast, I think in the second half, is the second half of the season, you don't have a ton of pitching. It starts to really rear its head in August. Some teams they don't have pitching. How are they doing this? And then you get to July, August, and those teams start to come down to earth. And I mean, look, we were shocked at what the Reds were doing with their limited pitching, with the way that their rookies were performing. I think that's a huge part of it too. You have Ellie De La Cruz playing out of his mind, playing like a superstar. And then, of course, understandably, he comes down to earth like so many rookies do with his profile.
League
And
does
he's going to be fine.
Yeah.
He's going to be fine. But he has to learn. Your best player can't be learning on the job. It's just not, you can't succeed that way. And that's the reality. He's been pretty much their best player. Christian Encarnacion Strand, they're expecting a lot of him. Joey Votto, while it's fun to see him going deep, like he's still a shell of himself. And that's a guy getting a lot of at-bats. It's a team in a tough spot. What I will say is the one glimmer of hope they have, you get Hunter Green back hopefully at the end of this month. That's the plan. You get Nick Lodolo back at the end of this month. It might be too little too late at that point, but at least you have a glimmer of hope to lean on there.
Yeah.
But I mean, look at the pitching staff. It was never going to happen with that staff, especially when we knew Lodolo and Green were going to be out for a while. Fun story, but it's never going to happen like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, you had Luke Weaver like with a horseshoe up his ass, I guess. I mean, the game log where the Reds won was ridiculous. Like, I don't think there was a quality start in which he like started and the Reds kept on winning games that he started. So, you can only ride that for so long in a baseball season. And I think the reason we love baseball is shit normalizes, man. Over 162, yep. Like nobody really gets lucky over 162. You either press all the right buttons like the Giants in 2021, or you're really talented. And that's how you get into the postseason. Yeah. And I think the Giants in 21 were a little bit of both. The Marlins and the Diamondbacks, the other two teams in the National League that I want to highlight here. Let's start with the Marlins, losers of 4 in a row, 7 of 10. I mean, there were pieces with the Miami Marlins that looked indestructible while they were hot. And honestly, I immediately go to the bullpen. And AJ Puck is like the poster boy for me.
Yeah.
Because Puck was unbelievable pre-All-Star break. I mean, dissension might have started a little bit before the break, but like pre-All-Star break, this guy was incredible and borderline all-star after the trade from Oakland. And now it's, is he usable in the 9th inning? Maybe unfair for me to pin this all on Puck. I'm not pinning it all on Puck. I'm just saying he's kind of emblematic of where the Marlins have slipped, I feel like.
I mean, they're in a better spot if, Puck doesn't hit a wall. And unfortunately, it was an injury. You have like a concrete date injury, struggles as he comes back from that IL stint. And it was like an elbow nerve issue. Then you have Andrew Nardi, who is pitching like one of the best relievers in baseball, another lefty for you. And he was leading the league or like top 3 in the league in appearances by the time he went down. And so not only do you lose a guy that's throwing the hell out of the ball, you're using him more than anybody. Yep. That happens right around the same time. And I think that's where you really saw the bullpen start to slide. And then you have the struggles of Sandy. Now he's finally coming to life, but it's like the rotation was barely fighting that off. And then the lineup. And I think that was the biggest thing, man. It's like, I think this team's going to fight around and they'll hang around and they can play something close to 500 ball. Like I do think they're going to snap out of this ridiculously bad streak. Like Yuri Perez gets back on the 7th. That's obviously going to help them. Cueto somehow has been competent. They did just get Nardi back. They did add some power bats that should help. Jazz is playing once a week at least. That was more than before. I just feel like there's a way they can hang around. But look at the lineup, Jack, like 1 through 9, even especially before Berger was added to this team and Josh Bell. But you look at this lineup 1 through 9. Is this a playoff lineup? No. I don't know.
It's the second worst lineup in the National League. Like the Marlins have scored 460 runs. The Pirates have scored 457 runs. Like by runs scored, which is a pretty awesome stat when you're judging offense over a season. By runs scored, they are the second worst offense in the National League.
And you had Jorge Soler playing out of his mind in the first half. Like Soler is a good ball player. I think he's proven that he's not as bad as he was in previous years, but that's not your best play. That's not your power hitting, like 4 hitter that you pencil in every day and say, oh, he's going to be so feared. Like, no, pitchers execute their plan. He's out. Like it's the thing is he doesn't miss the mistakes. So for me, it's like, you look at that lineup 1 through 9, there's some really good players in there, but that's not a playoff lineup. And every time I looked at the box score or would look at like the lineup for any given day, even when they were playing really well, I think I said it on previous episodes. It was so hard for me to take it seriously because I just look at the names in the lineup, and I know there's more to it than that. But it's like you just look and you're like, no, this isn't it. This can't be a playoff lineup.
No, it takes a good bit until you are a valued name in a lineup, I think. And I think a really good example of that is Jack Sawinski, where like I was kind of doubting the consistent production from Sawinski because there was so much swing and miss there in the early goings. And, there was a little bit of chase there too. And I was like, man, I just can't get around on Sawinski being the key cog in an offense. Now that has changed because he's given us 4 to 5 months of very productive offense. I think it takes 4 to 5 months. So there was really just nobody putting together a consistent 4 to 5 months of offense.
Other than Arias.
But Arias was already an established hitter.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, there's no unestablished guy that has established themselves this year, which is a tough spot to be in. Arizona and Miami have both lost 16 of their last 21. Arizona's lost 8 of 10. Arizona's lost 6 in a row. The Diamondbacks are now a game and a half out of the final wildcard spot. They are 1 game over 500. With how exciting this team was in the front half of the season and how good Gallen is and how electrifying this offense can be, led by Corbin Carroll, they don't have the depth to do this right now. And I think that, I don't want to say we ignored it, but we almost gave them the benefit of the doubt. Like, oh yeah, these guys are going to figure it out. Dude, they really don't have consistent pitching outside of Gallen and Kelly.
Yeah. Yeah. And Kelly just got back, which is like a huge, that's huge for them. Right. But I mean, Ryan Nelson is your 3 right now.
Can't win a playoff series like that.
We talk about no shot. Jack, schedule disadvantage, right?
Yes.
3/5 of your rotation is almost a guaranteed schedule disadvantage right now with Brandon Pfaadt, who I think will be good in the long term, but just not right now. Brandon Pfaadt, Ryan Nelson, Slade Ciccone. Like that's just, you're probably losing the first 5 innings of those games. I'd say 75% of the time.
Yeah.
You're like hoping for Zach Davies or Tommy Henry back potentially.
But
and those guys
like a 7, I think.
Yeah, Jameson going down really hurt. And I think that was like one of the guys that I think it's overlooked at how much mattered because of how much he was kind of passed back and forth, AAA, big leagues. It was because other guys were just overperforming at the time. Drake Jameson would be their clear-cut 3 right now, I think. Yeah, even in a 5-inning role, he's their clear-cut 3. I feel better about a Drake Jameson start than I do a Slade Ciccone, Brandon Pfaadt, and Ryan Nelson start. I know Nelson has his flashes, but they don't have a third pitcher that you can really trust right now. And that's why I'm shocked that they weren't more active at the deadline, because I think this team was good enough and is good enough to have been playing in the rental market. You could justify a Michael Lorenzen. You could justify Vukovic and somebody else for a Michael Lorenzen on this team.
Yeah.
Because I think Lorenzen is enough to almost help push them in. That's how close I think they are. They needed just one more pitcher I really trust, and I think they could try to piece together 4 and 5.
They could have used Rich Hill, man. Rich Hill looks generational.
I mean, I think he would have helped. I trust Rich Hill more than I trust Slade Ciccone.
Yeah, the 6 runs in the first inning and a third on Sunday Night Baseball begged to differ. But yeah, man, I mean, it was just, it was a dormant I can't say it was a dormant deadline because they did get Sewald, and like, it's just a hard one to palate for me.
Sewald got bombed today too.
I know, and like
that's unlucky. I liked that move.
Yeah, I liked it too. I thought they moved from a surplus and they got a really solid closer in return. But man, I don't know. You needed starting pitching and you just didn't get starting pitching. The Angels got a lot. And the 2 teams in the American League that I want to highlight here in terms of sliders are the Red Sox and the Angels. You want to talk pitching depth? The Red Sox have none of that. Like, I think we saw the writing on the wall here. And I mean, it's the writing is coming to fruition. Lost 4 in a row. 7 of 10, Bernardino's still starting games. Like, you just can't get into a wild card situation like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's they can hold on to Whitlock coming back, Sale coming back. That'll help. But Paxton should have been traded. He's coming back down to earth already a little bit, and you hope he can stay healthy. But that's a big part of it too, which is another reason why I thought they should have traded him. Like, he's a guy that has struggled with health, but. Story needed more time in rehab, so that's going to take a while. And I think that the most telling thing with the Red Sox right now, because I do think that they have guys that can swing it and there are reinforcements coming, is the fact that you have a interesting clubhouse dynamic right now. Verdugo has been benched like multiple times this year. I don't know what the whole deal is, but clearly there's some like frustrating aspects to it. You said you saw Cora kind of coming out and saying, hey, this is as frustrating of a day I've had since I got here in 2018. That's wild to me because this is a team that is overachieving in a lot of ways. I mean, no one thought that they'd be this good at this point. So how is everything boiling over the way it is? How are people so frustrated? To me, that sounds like a broken clubhouse.
Yeah, and I don't want to say that this is close to the Red situation, but I think you make a great point. Like, this team did not expect. We didn't expect this team to be there. I'm sure, like, the guys in the clubhouse will tell you, like, oh, we totally expected to be in contention, but like, I don't know. I just
Vegas had them at what, 76 wins?
I think so. Like, the baseball community just should not have expected the Boston Red Sox to be in wild card contention, and now I think they're kind of showing their true colors here in terms of roster construction.
Yeah, but I think they can hit. Like, I think they can hang around. I think the pitching is short, and we talked about it. Like, any team that's shy of pitching is gonna kind of expose themselves around now. I think this team is struggling beyond the field too. Like, I think it's compounding with other issues. It sounds like, which Verdugo wanted that extension before the year.
And
he hasn't gotten it. Then he gets trade rumors instead. And I just find it interesting that like not that long after the trade rumors and him being available in deals, which was not that long after he asked for an extension and said, I love it here. We made fun of him before the year about basically begging for an extension.
Put together a PowerPoint
I find it interesting. Yeah, like literally just like, here's what I do. Yeah. This is why ground ball rates don't matter. Like, I just feel like this is interesting where he allegedly gets to the ballpark late after the deadline and isn't thrilled about it, even though it was, a week or so after, not even a few days after. So it's not that coincidental to me.
Yeah. Angels, I don't know how to palate this. I feel really bad. I feel really bad for Shohei Ohtani. Angels are 7 out of the final wild card spot. They've lost 6 in a row. They haven't won since the deadline, and they bought so much, and there's just not a single win to show for it. That's brutal.
Well, didn't Giolito shove for them in his first outing? No,
I think it was the second one that he got obliterated.
Or was it the second one?
Yeah, first one he was pedestrian, and then the second one it was ruthless. It was a murder of Giolito.
Yeah, okay, so let's see. Yeah, first one was 5, such a Giolito line. Like, this is what you traded for, actually, in the first start. 5 1/3, 6 hits, 3 runs, 2 homers, 1 walk, 5 Ks. Yeah. That's the epitome of what you traded for, actually. The next start was rough, but it was the Braves. The Braves bomb everybody. 9 runs in 3 2/3. That's the one I saw. Man. Yeah, man, it's rough, but I stand by it though. They needed to try, and they still need to try, and I will still consider them somewhat in the hunt until they're literally 8 games out.
And they got 2 months left of ball left.
Yeah, Trout's coming back. Is Drury back in the lineup yet? Yeah, right.
I think so.
And yeah, they could do it, but then you see CJ Cron batting cleanup, and you're like, we advocated for this team to buy. Like, there's points. I see CJ Cron, Mike Moustakas, and then like Mickey Moniak. I know Moniak's been playing well, but Mickey Moniak and Randall Grichuk, and I'm like, we said these guys should buy, but I still stand by it. They should buy. This is what they should have done. But man, it's just going down in flames, kind of. They had to try it though.
Well, and Silseth punching 10 is very encouraging. I think
I like him.
Totally. I honestly have, I don't want to say like no concerns about the rotation, because obviously I have concerns. Obviously I have concerns about the lineup and the bullpen too, but if you're running out Ohtani, Detmers, who I'm still holding out hope is a low 3 ZRA guy, even though I think it's in the low to mid 4s right now. And then if Silseth looks good, man, I feel good about the depth here too. So I don't know, the Angels, I just don't want to chalk them up as, yep, they're showing their true colors right now, because 2 months out and it's the Angels and I want to root for them to retain Ohtani.
Here's the depressing thing. So Silseth like battled some injuries this year, and that's the only reason why we hadn't seen him up in the big leagues sooner. Like, I think he's easily better than pretty much any prospect arm they have. Like, Caden Dana is going to be good. Don't need to get into their system, but like, he's pretty much their most trustworthy arm that they have. And He's just been banged up. He put up really good numbers of points over the last couple of years through the minors and in spurts in the bigs.
Yeah.
There's a real chance that he puts up better numbers the rest of the way than Lucas Giolito. And if he does that, that's going to really hurt because it's like, oh, we traded Edgar Caro and Guy Bush for a guy that ended up not even being better than the guy we brought up from AAA. I think there's a legitimate chance Silseth could be better. There's a chance Silseth hits a wall too. Like, I don't want to say that it's guaranteed he does better, but I think he's got arguably better stuff at this point. He's younger. There's a chance he's better than Giolito, which that means they have a lot to look at in terms of that trade, even though I still support it. I stand by it.
No, Chance Silseth hits a wall. Chance Bryce Miller hits a wall too, but those two dealing on Sunday was very fun. And Seattle swept the Angels. So the Angels are sliding, jumping to the risers here to wrap. Starting the American League, Seattle is the one that you got to point to. We're going to do Seattle and Toronto in the American League here. Seattle, man, like, I'm in love with their pitching. And if Bryce Miller is punching 10 in that Angels lineup, I feel so good about this. And we know that he's fastball reliant. We know that fastball reliant guys can get hit and hit hard. But if you've got Miller and Kirby and Castillo and Gilbert going, I mean, I feel so freaking good about this. And Brian Wu, too.
Yeah, dude, but this is one, too, where the whole year it's the other side. It's not how are they doing this? It's how are they doing this?
Why are they not doing this?
Yeah. Why are they not doing better? Right. That's a question you and I ask each other all the time. So this might be the other version of the cream rising to the top because while I know that their offense has left a lot to be desired at points, we talk about scheduled advantages and disadvantages. I like their chances every single day in terms of the starting pitching department. Mm-hmm. If J-Rod and Teoscar play the way that they're capable of, and Ty France as well, which all three of them have started to come alive, especially Teoscar and J-Rod, this team's always got a shot. They got a good starting pitcher, and they've got enough offense when their guys are hitting. I'm buying what they're selling. I know Peter is. We don't need to speak for Peter. Or we can speak for Peter, I should say. This is a good baseball team that might finally be coming alive.
You know who has been playing exceptionally well is Cade Marlowe. And I'm not going to say like, oh, Cade Marlowe is the difference in the ALCS, but Marlowe offers a different dynamic to this lineup and maybe a breath of fresh air type. And Josh Rojas, who was just acquired on that Seawall deal, is taking over for Colton Wong, and nobody could be worse than Colton Wong. Dominic Canzone was just their 5-hitter on Sunday afternoon. Canzone offers a different wrinkle to that offense. So, you know, yes, while these are not the sexiest names, and while you would hope that these guys are performing better than they are, I mean, it's kind of fun to see they got an injection of life at the deadline, even though they gave away their closer. And oh, by the way, Andres Munoz happens to be freaking awesome at that closing thing.
Oh, yeah, he's pretty good at that. He's another one of those just like freak dudes that just, I don't think anyone's going to be able to hit as long as he throws strikes.
Yeah.
But I love the point you bring up about the idea that Marlowe's kind of giving them a little spark plug. Because I know that they got good things from Kelenic in spurts, and overall he was a productive baseball player for them. 1.5 F4 in 90 games, 33% K rate, but 11 homers, which is what you're really getting there. That's a 111 WRC plus. But Marlowe, and I don't know if it's going to sustain, but through this 13-game stretch, Marlowe doesn't strike out. He's actually walked as much as he struck out in 13 games. He puts the ball in play. He's fast. This guy had 25 bags in AAA, and he's just dynamic. So he's kind of that table setter. And I think instead, when this offense was just going through so many dry spells where guys were striking out too much or chasing early in counts, and just it was like 1-2-3, 1-2-3, 1-2-3. Marlowe grinds out at bats, and I think is kind of giving this team another wrinkle. So I like the point you bring up there. Look, I'm not saying he's going to have a better career than Kelenic. I'm not saying he's better than Kelenic over 100 games. But right now, I think he's injected kind of exactly what they've needed when Kelenic was kind of going stale for them in that offense.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you, man. So I thought that was a great injection of life in terms of Marlowe. And I think that offense, while it's not going to be good down the stretch, it's going to be palatable. And the biggest thing that they can get is Julio Rodriguez, like figuring things out in the slightest. And I think that he's starting to do so. JP Crawford, by the way, looks really good.
Yeah, he's a streaky guy. So if you can get him timed up to streak well here, like that's perfect as well. The last thing I'll say is the Mariners were better from a record perspective by the end of last year. And we were excited about them. We knew that the offense wasn't where it was supposed to be, but like, hey, this team can make a little noise in the playoffs. What happened? Their offense stalled out against a really good pitching staff in the Astros. And we said, just wait till they upgrade that offense.
Yeah.
Well, the offense might not be as upgraded as we had hoped, but the pitching is arguably better than it was last year. So this could still be the same team as last year, if not slightly better. That's a team that's always got a shot.
And where's Robbie Ray, man? I mean, you just need Robbie Ray.
But that's the thing. Like, you replaced Robbie Ray with Bryce Miller, basically.
Feel good about that.
Yeah.
Toronto, the other team in the American League, and they ran into the Red Sox at the right time. Toronto just swept a weekend series in Boston. They hold on to that final wild card spot. They're 2.5 ahead of the Mariners. They've won 6 of 10. I still have my concerns about Toronto. I still have my concerns about the back of that rotation. I'm wondering who the 3 is, who the 4 is. I feel, great about what's up top, both in the rotation and both in the lineup. Like, I feel really good about that. But, Bichette was day-to-day this week, and that just kind of sends a shiver through your spine. I think while Toronto looks hot because they swept over the weekend, this is a team that is probably susceptible to a hot Mariners team leapfrogging them.
It's going to be interesting. I think this is going to be a fun showdown because I hear you. I definitely think they're susceptible. They're not a perfect baseball team at all.
Yeah.
But they are getting better. I do think they're getting a little bit stronger as they go here. It sucks that you end up getting Bichette hurt, but dodge a bullet there. He's going to be back. They acquired some, reinforcements in the meantime. And you get Ryu back, who actually gave you a quality start. If I'm not mistaken, Kikuchi's been throwing pretty well of late. Bassett hasn't sucked. Barrios is looking like Jose Barrios again, by the way, which is an interesting kind of just development overall. Manoa's Manoa, and that's going to be a problem for a while. I don't know what the deal is. But you can almost phase Manoa out if Ryu is even a low 4s guy. I feel better about the rotation than I did before. I know that's not saying much, but I do feel better.
I feel better. I'm trying to find out exactly.
Adding Hicks too?
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm trying to find exactly how Barrios kind of recaptured this. I think it was with Tom House. I think Barrios spent a couple weeks this offseason with Tom House, and they ID'd like exactly how Barrios was throwing the ball, and like they broke down his mechanics at an incredibly high level.
Interesting.
And I know Walker just met with Tom House. I saw that on his Instagram, so I want to talk to him about that. Tom House has his fingerprint on so many of the best big league arms in baseball. And I want to know like what Tom House did to help Barrios, because that guy is night and day so far this year. And if Barrios looks like this for the next 5 years after this, I'd say that extension was worth it.
Yeah. Well, so what's interesting is I think sometimes we talked about it with Bellinger and when we talked to Walker, sometimes it's not about showing some guy something new. It's showing them what they had in the first place. Because a lot of times guys are really good out of the gate. It comes so easy to them. They don't know how they had it. And then when you lose it, you don't quite know how to get back there because you even weren't totally sure how you had it in the first place. Yeah. And I think Barrios is maybe just getting back to what he's always done and how he succeeded in the past. But then you look at Kikuchi too, by the way.
Yeah.
And last 3 starts, he's given up a total of 2 earned runs. And that comes against Baltimore, the Dodgers, and Seattle. That's impressive. If that can trend the right way, again, you're adding Ryu for depth. I feel as good as I felt. They added the bullpen reinforcements. Though, like Vladdy's coming alive. The lineup looks good. I think we're going to get a good showdown here. I think this might be the best showdown. You have the National League, which it might be like hot potato. Nobody wants the final wild card spot unless it's the Cubs. Yeah. But I think with this one, you're going to have 2 teams surging at the same time, and that's a lot of fun.
Cubs are proving they might want that last wild card spot in the National League. And we're going to wrap with the Cubs here because they're, I don't want to say hot, but they've won 7 of 10. And
that's hot.
It is hot. They had a big series with Atlanta, and the Cubs got a couple of huge wins against the Braves. And the fact that the offense showed up like that, how do you beat the Atlanta Braves? You got to outscore them. You're not going to stop that offense, especially right now. Like, I'm just looking,
Yeah.
and Riley looks great now. The
Oh
only
my
problem
God.
for the Atlanta Braves was Austin Riley was 70% of what we know Austin Riley could be pre
Yeah.
All-Star break, and
He,
now he
he
looks
was
like
only
Austin
pretty, he was
Riley.
only kind of good.
Right. It's like, oh, he's got a 750 OPS. What's wrong with him? And now it's,
Yeah.
oh my God, he's back. This lineup is flawless. The
When,
fact that
when that guy,
they were manageable this weekend is great. The fact that the Cubs managed to take the series is incredible.
I mean, I think, it's funny. You said like they might want this thing. I think they made it really clear that they wanted this thing the second they went and said it wasn't, we're not trading Bellinger. To me, that's not even telling me that you want this thing. That's just telling me that, hey, you think you got a shot.
Yeah.
When they made that trade for Heimer Candelario, I think now it's almost been overused of like, oh, the team got the reinforcements and, that was all they needed to galvanize them.
Yeah.
I don't think the Marlins were galvanized by an addition of David Robertson. I think, they probably felt good about it. Like, oh, nice, we got a closer, but that's not galvanizing. The Cubs thought they were going to be disbanded. At least two of their best players were going to be shipped out. And instead, not only did they find out that two of their best players are staying, they also find out, hey, that guy that's playing out of his mind in Washington that hit really well against us in spurts, he's on our team now too. So we're keeping this together, and we just made it better. I think that lit a fire under that whole Cubs clubhouse, and I think they are really feeling like, hey, they believe in us up top. We're going to prove them right down here, and they're proving them right. Like, I think that really worked.
And Jamer was coming home too, which is fun. Cue up
Yeah.
the Kanye and the Skylar Gray.
Yeah.
Quick trivia. Did I text you about this? Do you know what the Jamer Candelario trade was to get him away from Chicago?
Away from Chicago.
Yeah.
Where'd he go?
It's a fascinating trade. Chicago to Detroit at the deadline in 16.
Deadline in 16 to Detroit. Infield for a prospect?
No, Jamer had already made his debut with the Cubs. He
Traded for a prospect? With a prospect?
Traded with
to,
a prospect
to Detroit.
To Detroit.
Paredes.
Little help. Traded with Isaac Paredes.
Yeah.
For, I want to say, Alex Avila, the catcher, and Justin Wilson. Yeah,
No idea.
Justin Wilson and Alex Avila.
No shot. I would have known that part of it. But yeah, that's wild.
Jamer and Isaac Paredes. Low A Isaac Paredes.
Low A Isaac Paredes. That guy's bounced around a little bit. That's fun. But again, like, I really do think that got them rolling. My question for you, though, is this. You have this team now that is swinging the bats, and I think that's a big part of it. Like, they are really starting to swing the bats well. I think they're clicking on all cylinders. The bullpen's playing well, pitching well. You have Javier Assad starting to like throw all right too,
and
which is interesting.
Jr.
It's fun
called
seeing
him one
him
of the
get
best
out.
pitchers in baseball.
Yeah, that was insane. That was
Right.
That was the craziest thing I've ever seen. I think he's fun, but like, that was nuts. Are you worried about their pitching at all? Like, obviously Javier Assad is not one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. So I look at the rotation. I'm like, is this going to hold up?
No, I'm not sure. Like, Drew Smiley's got a 4.7. I'm just going down the probables.
Tyone's pitching well of late. I don't know. His last start may not.
So you go Smiley, Tyone, Hendricks, who was just bombed on Friday night. And man, like, I don't know if I feel great about it.
You got to presume a healthy Stroman.
Yeah, it's a big week. They go to New York to play the Mets. They need to take care of business there. But then they go to Toronto next weekend. And then next Tuesday, they start, a couple games at home against the White Sox. And then they host Kansas City. So the schedule is light. I don't want to say there are trap games there, but like, you got to take 2 or 3 from the Mets. You have to take 1 or 3 from Toronto
100%.
in Toronto. You got to take 1 or 2 from the White Sox.
I think the Mets and the White Sox ones, you have to. Have to. There's no doubt about that. Jays will be a fun test. Do you buy this? In the last 5 starts for Jameson Taillon, a 2.08 ERA.
No.
A 3.6 FIP. 30 innings, 23 Ks, 10 walks. You buying this, like, continuing for Jameson Taillon?
No. And in the most boring answer ever, I also don't buy the 6.5 ERA he was putting up previously. So shockingly enough, I think he's a mid-3s guy.
Okay, well, that's pretty good then, I guess. yeah, this does this team have enough pitching? That's basically my question, because we're saying all these other teams don't have enough pitching. Well, then if nobody has enough pitching, then somebody has enough pitching,
Yeah.
because
So
one team is gonna one team is gonna have more than the rest. And is that the difference, or is it another team that's just going to slug their way there? Like, how is this last wild card spot going to be settled?
I think in a 12-11 game on September 29th, that's how it's going to be
Yeah,
settled. I
yeah,
mean, maybe a home run derby. Like, my concern, okay, so you say pitching, I will specify. I say bullpen. Like, obviously, I don't feel great about Drew Smiley and a diminished Kyle Hendricks getting starts, but dude, like Adbert Alzolay is the one guy that I really feel confident in coming out of that bullpen. And I know Leiter has been fine, but man, like I wish they made a big deadline move for a Jordan Hicks type, even though St. Louis wouldn't send him to Chicago. That's just not how that works. But like
yeah.
a Chafin, man, getting Chafin back, that would have been huge, but they didn't get Chafin back. He went to a division rival. So I I don't know. I have concerns about them finishing off low scoring games. I just don't
Yeah.
know how many low scoring games they're going to be in. And I don't know how many games the Reds are going to win or the Marlins are going to win or the Diamondbacks are going to win.
Yeah. So here's my question for you. We were clowning AJ Preller, but like, you throw your tinfoil cap on.
No.
Did King Preller see this coming? Did he see the teams ahead of him and say, flawed, 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 flawed? I mean, I know the Giants have been playing a little bit better of late, but they've lost 2 in a row as we're recording this. Like they look flawed to a degree too. They're trying to find some things. But he looks at Cincinnati, says, no way that lasts. Looks at Miami, says, no way that lasts. Looks at Arizona and says, we can beat them. You know, we can catch them. We got more games against them. And all of a sudden you're like, why would we sell? And now they're 2.5 games out, I guess 3 by the time we finish recording this. And you know, they could get hot at any point. Who do you think is its wild card spot to lose, I guess? This third wild card spot. Which team would you say it's theirs to lose as we record this? Because technically it would be the Cubs by the standings. But on sheer talent, if it was just on paper, it would, I think it would have to be the Padres, as dumb as that sounds, as shitty as they've looked. Like on paper, I think it's the Padres. And there's a lot of ball games left and a lot of teams that aren't playing well besides the Cubs. So unless you're buying the Cubs thing, I think you can make a legitimate case for the Padres.
So my thing is Rich Hill, 3 innings, 6 earned. He's got an ERA over 5. G-Man Choi hitting a $190. He's playing first base for them now. Garrett Cooper is active on their bench. Like things just don't feel great in San Diego right now. And you mentioned like looking ahead, it's okay, flawed, 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 flawed. You get to San Diego, flawed. Like you can keep on going there. They're not perfect. And I think Preller knows that they're not perfect.
No
I
doubt.
think it's the Cubs to lose, and that might be some recency bias coming into play. Um, I would stack it as Cubs, Diamondbacks, Padres, Reds.
Damn, Marlins all the way down there.
Marlins at the bottom, I think.
All even
Yuri
with Yuri
Perez is
back.
back. Yeah.
Nah, dude. I don't think Yuri's gonna be perfect out of the gate. I'll be honest,
That
because
offense has no sex appeal.
no, zero. Berger's been great and Bell's been great. That's the craziest part.
Yes.
Those guys have been swinging it since they came over. And I'm glad Kim Eng made a move for multi-year future instead of just all the chips on this one. I'll say this. I don't know what the injury situations are on Musgrove and Waka. I haven't checked in recently, and I don't know if they've even provided updates that recently. Both guys dealing with shoulder inflammation, so that could be weeks, that could be months. Like there's never an in-between with that.
Yeah.
But if they get those 2 guys back, I feel good about it. Darvish, Snell, Musgrove, even though he's not been great this year. Walker was awesome before the injury. And then you got that bullpen. You know what the lineup can do? Like, I don't want to say it's the Padres to lose because I feel like you almost get laughed at for that.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I look at the team, man, and like Garrett Cooper's probably the guy that takes over that role for G-Man. Like Cooper's been playing bad by his standards, has like 750 OPS. Like he's an upgrade for them. They got better by adding him, as much as I hate to say that. They have enough. Like even their holes are not that gaping to me. I think you could make a legitimate case that it's the Padres to lose.
God, that'd be wild. I don't
Maybe
even know
I'm
the right
wrong.
word. I guess wild. But no, man, They have Fernando Tatis and they have Juan Soto. There's
Kim's playing like an all-star.
Kim's playing like a first team all MLB guy. I mean, you look at the WAR
Yeah.
numbers. I mean, this guy's playing like one of the better middle infielders in baseball.
Like, I just think they need one of a couple, like one of their just one of the several other superstars to really go nuts. Like Soto's doing his thing, Machado or Xander. Xander had a 3-hit night, 2-hit night, and then had another hit the other night. Like he could go get hot at any moment. I just think if one of those guys really gets going, this team could get rolling.
If Xander gets right, they could be really dangerous.
Yeah, but maybe it's the Cubs to lose. All I can say is it's definitely not the Marlins. It's definitely not the Reds. The D-backs, you could make a case, but they look really lost right now with not that many reinforcements coming.
Yeah.
I think the Padres may settle in and say, hey, we're the best, one of the best teams in baseball talent-wise. It's like, let's figure this thing out.
Man,
or
Javier
not.
Reyes would be insufferable.
Oh my God, yeah.
Miserable.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I think I owe Cubs, and I hear you. I just don't agree when you say Padres. So
I don't think many people will, man.
I get it. All right. That's it today. Again, Walker Buehler coming your way either later today or tomorrow, depending on when we can hammer down with him. We're going to talk about throwing to John Rahm. We're also going to talk about the wild card chase a good bit, but you guys will hear from us again tomorrow. Just Baseball Show, as always, brought to you by BetMGM. Any link you need in the episode description, including alt.xyz, your card marketplace. Folks, talk to you tomorrow.